The rain had just stopped falling over a quiet stretch of Route 66 near Flagstaff, Arizona, when the Silver Maple Diner flickered its neon sign back to life. Inside, the smell of coffee and fried eggs mixed with the low hum of late-night chatter. Emily Carter moved between booths with practiced ease, her worn sneakers squeaking softly against the tiled floor as she balanced plates on her arm. Emily had been a waitress there for almost 4 years, ever since her mother passed and medical bills swallowed everything they owned. She never complained, even when tips were thin or customers rude. The diner was her world now, a place where she learned to smile through exhaustion and keep going when life felt unfair. That night, an older man sat alone in the corner booth, his coat damp and his posture tired. His hands shook slightly as he lifted his coffee cup. Emily noticed the tremble and quietly brought him a fresh napkin and a warmer refill without being asked. "On the house," she said gently, setting it down with a small smile. The man looked up, surprised. His eyes were sharp, despite his age, studying her face like he was trying to understand something deeper. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I know," Emily replied. "But sometimes people need it." The man nodded slowly, something like relief passing over his face. He ordered a simple meal and ate in silence, while Emily checked on him between tables. She noticed other waitresses avoiding him, whispering about how he looked homeless or strange, but Emily ignored them and treated him like any other guest. When he finished eating, the man reached into his wallet, paused, and then looked embarrassed. "I don't think I have enough," he admitted quietly. Emily glanced at the thin bills in his hand and shook her head. "It's okay," she said. "You're covered tonight." She leaned closer and added, "Kindness doesn't come with a price tag." The man's eyes filled with tears he didn't let fall. He stood slowly, placing a folded piece of paper under his plate. "Thank you," he said, his voice low but firm. "You have no idea what you've done." Emily watched him walk out into the cool Arizona night, not expecting anything in return. She cleared the table later and found the paper, assuming it was a note. Instead, it was just a name and a phone number written neatly in ink. Weeks passed and life went on. Emily worked double shifts, paid rent late, and sent what little money she could to her younger brother in college. The diner stayed busy, but her situation never seemed to change. She almost forgot about the man from the corner booth. Then one afternoon, a black luxury sedan pulled into the diner parking lot, standing out like it didn't belong. A sharply dressed woman stepped inside and asked for Emily by name. The entire diner went quiet as the woman handed Emily a sealed envelope and said, "You're requested at a reading tomorrow in Phoenix." Emily's hands shook as she opened the letter that night. It explained that the man she had helped was Harold Whitman, a self-made billionaire and founder of a massive logistics empire. He had passed away suddenly, and she had been named in his will. The next day, Emily sat in a polished law office, overwhelmed by words like assets, shares, and inheritance. The lawyer explained that Harold had no close family left and believed in rewarding character over blood. Her single act of kindness had stood out in a life filled with people who wanted something from him. The lawyer's voice softened. "You are now the primary beneficiary," he said. "You inherit controlling interest in Whitman Freight Solutions." Emily couldn't breathe. Her world tilted as disbelief and fear mixed together. She thought of the nights she cried alone, the customers who snapped at her, the moments she almost gave up. None of it felt real anymore. Outside, the city buzzed as usual, unaware that a waitress from a roadside diner had just become one of the wealthiest women in the state. Emily sat still, clutching her bag, realizing that one kind choice had rewritten her entire future. But the story didn't end there. Emily returned to Flagstaff, different person on paper, but the same one at heart. The mountains looked the same, the diner sign still flickered, and the smell of coffee still clung to her clothes. She didn't tell anyone at first, choosing to finish her shifts quietly while the lawyers handled the noise of her new reality. Word spread anyway. It always did. Customers stared longer, co-workers whispered, and the manager suddenly treated her with careful politeness. Emily noticed the change and felt uncomfortable, like kindness now had conditions attached to it. One evening, she watched a young waitress get scolded harshly by a customer for spilling water. The girl's hands shook as she apologized again and again. Emily stepped in calmly, took the blame, and comped the table without asking permission. The customer left angry, but the girl didn't cry. Later that night, Emily sat alone in the same corner booth where Harold Whitman once sat. She unfolded his note again, now framed in her memory more than on paper. She understood then that the money wasn't the gift. The message was, within months, Emily resigned from the diner and announced plans that shocked the town. She bought the Silver Maple Diner outright, keeping every employee and raising wages quietly without press releases. She renovated the kitchen, fixed the broken booths, and kept prices low. Some investors mocked her decisions. Advisors warned her that generosity wasn't efficient. Emily listened, nodded, and did it anyway. She had learned that efficiency without humanity was empty. At Whitman Freight Solutions, she took a hands-on role, visiting warehouses and talking directly to workers. She removed executives who abused power and replaced them with leaders who listened. Productivity rose, not because of fear, but because people felt seen. One former board member tried to sue her, claiming she didn't deserve the inheritance. The case made headlines, filled with cruel opinions and jealous speculation. Emily never responded publicly. In court, the judge dismissed the case after reading Harold's personal letter. It read, simply that character is revealed when no one is watching, and that Emily Carter had shown more wealth in one night than many did in a lifetime. The media storm passed, and Emily faded from the headlines by choice. She funded scholarships for service workers, paid off diner workers' debts, and created a foundation that focused on dignity first aid. No cameras, no speeches. Years later, a tired man walked into the Silver Maple Diner on a cold evening. Emily happened to be visiting and noticed the way he sat alone, hands shaking, unsure if he belonged. She brought him coffee before he asked. He looked up, surprised, and smiled. "You didn't have to do that." Emily smiled back. "I know." Outside, the neon sign buzzed softly against the dark Arizona sky. Inside, warmth lingered where kindness had taken root. The diner was still just a diner, but for some people, it was the beginning of everything. Emily understood now that cruelty burns fast and leaves nothing behind, while kindness grows quietly and changes lives in ways no one can predict. She didn't see herself as lucky. She saw herself as responsible, because the greatest inheritance Harold Whitman left her was not his fortune, but the reminder that how you treat people when you have little defines what you deserve when you have much. And in that truth, Emily Carter found a life richer than money could ever buy.